Hello and welcome back to the Shed Geek Podcast. Here's a message from our studio sponsor. Let's be real. Running a shed business today isn't just about building great sheds. The industry is changing fast. We're all feeling the squeeze, competing for fewer buyers while expectations keep climbing. And yet, I hear from many of you that you are still juggling spreadsheets, clunky software, or disconnected systems. You're spending more time managing chaos than actually growing your business. That's why I want to talk to you about our studio sponsor, ShedPro. If you're not already using them, I really think you should check them out. ShedPro combines your 3D configurator, point of sale, RTO contracts, inventory, deliveries, and dealer tools all in one platform. They even integrate cleanly into our Shed Geek marketing solutions. From website lead to final delivery, you can quote, contract, collect payment, and schedule delivery in one clean workflow. No more double entries, no more back and forth chaos. Quoting is faster, orders are cleaner. And instead of chasing down paperwork, you're actually running your business. And if you mention Shed Geek, you'll get 25% off all setup fees. Check it out at shedpro.co/ShedGeek. Thank you, ShedPro, for being our studio sponsor, and honestly, for building something that helps the industry.
Welcome back to another episode of the Shed Geek Podcast. I'm your host, Cord Cook, here in Metropolis, Illinois, on an absolutely beautiful day, a day where, gosh, I wish I was not stuck in the office all day. Just so beautiful out there. The sun is shining, the birds are chirping, the grass is growing. All the good things of spring. Today, I think we have an absolutely fantastic guest, much needed, I believe, in this industry. The information that he has, the company that he's running, the group that he is a part of, very much looking forward to that, Mr. Luke Miller. But before we get rolling, just a couple of quick ways so that you know how to stay plugged in with us. Of course, as always, the Shed Geek call-in line, Shannon's personal cell phone, 618-309-3648. Email address, info at shedgeek.com. The Shed Geek website has so much good information, and is soon, maybe even by the time this is airing, we'll have received a bit of an overhaul, a facelift, an update. So go and check that out, if nothing else, just to see all the new things that are going on over there. Of course, all the socials, Facebook page, the Facebook groups, Shed Sales Professionals in particular. We always like to shout out that community, such a good group of people interacting and adding value in there. And then for anyone who has friends or acquaintances in the plane community, please let them know that the Shed Geek Podcast comes to them as well, with our call-in line. That is 330-997-3055. Again, 330-997-3055 for anyone who wants to listen by phone. So with all of that said, I would like to introduce today our guest, Mr. Luke Miller. He is part of the Miliari Group, which I guess I will let him tell it for himself, a financial services company, financial services group that offers all kinds of different services and everything. Luke, you are located there in Belvedere, Tennessee, I believe, if I'm remembering that correctly. Is that right?
Yes, sir. That is correct, Cord.
It is a beautiful day in Belvedere, I hope.
Oh, it is. It is mostly. We've got a little bit of weather moving in. It looks like we need some rain, but
yes,
it is.
Yes.
It is a beautiful day today. Kind of one of those days. I don't like being in the office, but it is.
We've chosen
it is
the
what
wrong
it is.
professions, haven't we?
We
should have stuck
like
with
sometimes.
our row cropping. At least that's my roots, the agricultural roots. But on a day like today is when I wouldn't mind to be in the cab of a tractor.
It would be, yeah. It's one of those days I wouldn't care to be outside, but I love what I do. So,
well, Luke, exactly. So let's get to that. Let's get to that, and maybe even before jumping into where you're at currently. Of course, we always like to take the time here on the Shed Geek Podcast to really introduce our guests, talk about their background, how they've wound up, in the shed industry, and now, offering a much needed service to the shed industry. So, Luke, obviously you're a miller. So you've got some roots. So maybe tell us
Definitely
about
got some
those
roots.
and how you find yourself on the podcast today.
For sure, for sure. Appreciate it, Court. So really, of course, my name is Luke Miller. I am 32 years old, born and raised in Belvedere, Tennessee. Grew up in the Plain community. Ended up leaving the Mennonites at a young age, and then just just been living life since then. Kind of how it pertains to this conversation, I guess. Like, grew up working for my dad, like most people in our community.
Your
And
first
then
boss.
my first boss was my dad. My second boss outside of dad was actually the for the company I just left, Country Barn Construction. I was over there way back in the day at 13, 14 years old, Mr. Yannian at the time. He brought me on to clean up his shop and keep the lot cleaned up. I did a lot of just odd jobs here and there, uh, running around the shop. So that was my first exposure to the shed industry. And then as I grew older, uh, went to school, got married, and then ended up getting a job back in the shed industry, working here again, working with my dad again.
Hmm.
He was a delivery driver for another local shed company that does rent to own as well. And at the time, I was just out of school looking for a job, and this company just so happened to be looking for some help in the customer service department in their rent to own division. And so got on board with them and really learned the industry from the ground up. I started, like I said, started in customer service, taking payments, talking to customers, and then eventually from there, kind of grew into a bit of a management role there, and eventually transitioned into running a sales lot, managing several dealers there. Built a website, built our digital presence. That was had a bit of a journey where I ran my own web design agency for a couple years, and then yeah, loved my position there, and grew. But then 5 years ago, I I was doing some website work for my old boss at Country Barn Construction, and uh, through a whole string of events, they needed somebody to come in and revamp their sales, and they asked me if I wanted the position, and it was the same thing I already was doing, except now instead of driving 45 minutes to work, I was like 5 minutes from my office. So
Right.
kind of a no-brainer on the switch, but I came in and started working with them, doubled, like, of course, this was right over sales. So when I say I doubled production the first 2 years, year over year, um, that's not quite as impressive of a feat as otherwise would be. But we really grew sales, built the brand up, just developed the digital presence there, and my role there was really everything on the marketing side,
Yeah.
as well as sales. So over the years, like I said, started in rent to own, so I know the rent to own piece of the industry. Worked in sales, I know the sales portion. Working with my dad on deliveries occasionally. Uh, I know deliveries. I know, like, dealing with customers like on location. I've done a fair amount of that in my time. Uh, I've done delivery dispatching for drivers, and managed a fleet of about 3 to 4 drivers at any given point during my time at Country Barn Construction, and then also was in charge of quality control. So
Gosh, a true
I can
journeyman.
say it's I've got background in pretty much every aspect of the industry, except I've never put together a shed myself. That's the only piece I know that I haven't done.
Right.
But everything else I've done. But that's where I was. I've had about 12 years of experience there. And then kind of really how I got into financial services was a bit of a twist, because it's not really anything related to shed sales. But over the last 12 years, I realized, just in dealing with people, I love education. I love teaching people. I love teaching people, of course, like somebody would come into my office to talk about a shed, and before they left, they knew all the different styles available to them. They knew the pros and cons of each. And I have a belief that educated people make educated decisions, and it's better for everybody in the long run.
That's right.
Not a big fan of just trying to uh, come in and sell somebody on just what they say they want.
Yeah.
I believe it's really important just to take some time on the front and get to like build some connection and find out what their actual needs are, and then service their needs versus then just making a quick sale. Because
Whenever we had our original um, conversation a couple weeks ago, just kind of talking, this is just such an easy area of overlap for yourself and what you're trying to do with financial education in the same way that Shannon, and I think myself and the whole Shed Geek brand really is devoted to exactly what you're saying. We trust in people's good nature and good faith, and you think that whenever you can educate in a kind way and put ideas forward, we have that same faith that people then kind of make the best decision and go on about to have a better experience, a good life, whatever all those things are. So that just lined up so well, which is why, of course, we asked you to come on and talk about these things. And I think maybe it's the conservative nature of the industry. Maybe it's some of the roots, in the in the Amish, Mennonite, the plain community cultures, where a lot of the business and financial interactions are all kind of in that silo, so to speak. Everything it kind of travels within the community, but it really is a broader shed industry thing. We hear in the background when we have conversations, you know, um, just how much cash winds up getting held kind of in interim, right, in preparation for whether it be the next spring and inventory, whatever those situations may be, trading RTO contracts, right? I mean, a
Mhm.
lot of the buying and selling of RTO contracts is really just trading cash. It's somewhat become like a market where, as a manufacturer, especially if you're a manufacturer who carries your own RTO, you can almost trade out, cash for those contracts whenever you then need the actual cash as an infusion into capital assets and building up, more bays or another trailer or whatever you're doing. And so, I think that all of those things kind of mixed together and these quasi financial, markets operating even inside the industry have led to a point where, at least in our conversations, it seems like there's a need for that, um, just the information. What is the best way to, whether it be invest, raise capital, accounting. We had a really great conversation with Greg French over at Graceland, where he was talking about accrual accounting methods, and how they're kind of underutilized in the industry because everybody's always
Mhm.
just kind of using cash, and so I guess, I'm just going to let you run here, Luke. I just threw a whole bunch of things out there that illustrate the need for this, financial literacy, financial education, but I know you have a passion for it. So you tell me what your read is on kind of where a lot of the industry is, and maybe even some really simple, straightforward things that you're trying to do, to help with that.
For sure. I can do that. So really, I know that was a lot you just said there. There's a ton in there we could unpack. Um, I think really where it kind of starts, like I know from me coming from the playing background, um, I will say this. I believe it all starts from a few different things. Uh, and I guess I'd ask you, Cord. Of course, you've been around for a while. when you're looking around, we're just talking in general here now, but when you look around, how many people do you see that struggle with their finances?
Oh my goodness. Just general population. I mean, it is um I don't even know how to put a number on it. Like 60 or 70%, 80%.
Hmm.
I mean, most I think is a very fair answer.
It is actually statistically, yeah, it's high 70s, low 80s in the percentages of people that like just struggle and living paycheck to paycheck. Uh, but like if you dig into that, why do you think so many people struggle?
Oh, I mean, my truest inkling is that there's not a great understanding of actually how money works, how interest works, how inflation works, and that I don't think a lot of people understand that you're losing ground all the time, kind of, right? If you're not keeping up with inflation, if
Hmm.
you're not making the interest that keeps up with overruns or investment returns that outrun that, I think a lot of the detriment in the US over the last, I don't know, 20 or 30 years, probably since the early 2000s and the dot-com bubble, as they said, feels like everyone is just losing ground on actual quality of life because they don't understand money.
Introducing the Challenger, the revolutionary new shed mover that's taking the industry by storm. The Challenger features a touchless design, ensuring it only makes contact at the end of the skids and the bottom of the floor joists, so rest easy knowing your gable walls will remain pristine. Worried about reliability? Fear not, the Challenger is always up for the challenge and will not overturn or scuff your shed. Harness the power of innovative wireless technology. Remotely control the Challenger via your smartphone. No cell service needed. And guess what? The cell phone remote comes standard with every Challenger at no extra cost. Featuring floating forks, a 4-directional tilting mast, and sliding weight transfer, move the shed weight precisely where you need it to get ultimate traction. With self-loading capability, straight onto your truck, say goodbye to the need for a hydraulic carriage. The Challenger makes your job easy and more efficient. Choose from 2 machine sizes, 10,000 pounds and 15,000 pounds. Perfect for any job. Visit www.shedchallenger.com or email us at info@shedchallenger.com or call or text 828-220-3508 for more information. Experience the future of shed moving with the Challenger.
You really hit the nail on the head. Like it boils down to a lack of education. I don't know about you, Cord. I know when I came through school, of course, I was homeschooled. Cord, growing up in the Plain community, we left that and I was homeschooled. But even all the way through high school and the college I took, personal finance was never a requirement for me to graduate. Statistically, only 8% of high schools in America require any sort of personal finance credit to graduate. And what that leads you to then is when you do have some money, you do have some money, you're starting a business, whatever you're doing, you've got everybody telling you something different because you've got bankers telling you one thing, security brokers, they're going to tell you something different, insurance guys, they're going to tell you completely different thing. Uh, your mom and dad, your dad, he may have started a business. He's going to say, go start a business. Uh, Everybody's telling you something different to do. And like when you have something like that, like you have some money that you want to grow, you want to learn more, like who do you talk to? Well, I hear a lot of people say, I go talk to my friends, my parents, or a credible source. Well, I mean, friends, they may or may not know. Parents, like if you're lucky and your parents are in a great place, like awesome. I know growing up, like my parents didn't have any more financial education than I did. And so that's a no-go. And then the third option, the credible source. what determines how do you know a source is credible if you don't actually understand how money works?
Right.
And so that's really kind of where we fit into the industry is just we we believe that everybody should have a base at minimum a basic understanding of money, how it grows, how it's taxed, understand how compound interest works, understand about inflation. And when you know the basics, I mean, finance isn't as complicated as we're always taught or made to think it should be. It,
Right.
it it just really boils down to just like you understand the basics, you're ahead of most people. And kind of how that plays into the whole industry, I feel like, is like, I mean, you know as well as I do, Cord, a lot of the people, like a lot of the big players in the industry, there's a massive piece of the industry that's in the playing community. They have the background, the roots in the playing community. And what I've noticed over the years is just being raised up in that background, there's always been uh, there's been developed over generations, I feel like, a limiting beliefs around money and actually having money. Because I know when I was growing up, like nobody talked about how much money they made. If you had too much money, who knows? You might get a talking to. Um, and people, yeah, people just like to run with they run with that. Um, the verse, I believe it's in Proverbs, where it says it's translated often as "money is the root of all evil." But I mean, the verse it's the love of money. So
Right.
it's not that money's bad. Money's just a tool. What I've found in the last 2 years working in financial services, it's just a tool. All money does is amplify who you are as a person. If you are a if you're a good person, you have good intentions, you're going to do good things with money. You're going to be a great steward of what God's blessed you with. If you're not a good person, more money is not going to fix anything. It's just going to make things worse.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I feel like I think that's kind of the pickle that a lot of people find themselves in because they don't want they're worried. Like what if money changes me? What if I get a lot of money and like am I going to manage it well? Am I going to do well with it? So that's kind of I guess the starting point and why I see like there's not much education in the industry. Um, but I'm on a mission to change that.
Well, I think, Luke, I think there is, I think the starting point itself is intimidating to a lot of people.
For
Like you
sure.
said, I mean, there are these social constructs. I mean, it's not just, not just the plane community, or any particular belief system. I mean, it is a social construct where, um, you don't talk about money. I mean, I grew up in what was probably like solidly middle class. My mom was a director of nursing. She was in administration at a hospital. My dad was also a nurse, but then we also, farmed, and he was fairly entrepreneurial, and we had some different types of agriculture going on, some freshwater prawns and stuff like that. So
Oh wow.
yeah, yeah, it was a cool era to be on the cook farm back then. It was a lot of fun, but we were solidly middle class, but there are a lot of stigmas, around money, things that maybe we even take for granted, and they're kind of rules that you don't realize are rules about how you show your money, or how you show your prosperity or lack thereof in public. One of them that I famously, have had several, I wouldn't call them arguments, but good discussions with my wife about, um, would be about, when your kids stay over at a friend's house. I was always taught that, you pick them up at 8:30, 9 o'clock the next morning, right? Because you don't want them to be any kind of a burden on that other family. You basically don't
Hmm.
want them to start incurring expenses. And like these are
Hmm.
these are tropes and maxims, and axioms that we are using that are based in, well, we don't want anyone to think anything of us because of the way that we, intentionally or accidentally incur costs on someone else. I mean, these are very solidly like, you know, German blue collar types of rules that you just follow. And until you're an adult, you're not even sure why you were following them, and you really think
Hmm.
through it. But I think what winds up happening is whenever there's a stigma around it, just the first step, the entry point. There's not actually a barrier to entry to coming to talk to Luke Miller or come and talk to the Miliari Group, right? But it feels like there is. It feels like there's something so intimidating about saying, "Gosh, I'm not sure that I know what I don't know, even right. I'm not sure that I even know where to start. I don't want Luke to think less of me because Cord is a guy who obviously doesn't know anything about money. He's coming to
Right.
me and asking me about it, and so it can be intimidating. But the flip side of that is that you wind up all of your efforts and all of the good works that you do, and the prosperity that comes from those things is then actually kind of being chipped away at because you're not keeping up through investment and through smart financial decisions. You're not actually getting the level of prosperity that you've worked so hard for. So, maybe Luke, just maybe a good way to walk people through would be, what would be that first step? Is it a cash account that has some kind of a money market function where even if you're still effectively using, checking, you're still kind of using money the way that we think of it, as in cash and checks and transactions. What's the first step to just saying, you know, let's start being financially responsible today? What would that first step be so it's not so intimidating?
For sure. That is a great question. That's a really good question. And there's a couple of different ways you could go. I will get to that. I do before I get to that, I want to speak to the first piece of what you were saying
Yeah,
about
sure.
the intimidation that a lot of people feel. It's because there's historically been there's a stigma in the financial services space. People expect when they go talk to a financial services professional, they're going to be sold to, right? Because like if you go to Wells Fargo, what's Wells Fargo going to do for you? You're guaranteed to walk out of there with a Wells Fargo account of some kind. I
Right.
mean, like you go talk to Fidelity, they're going to sell you a Fidelity account because
Yep.
that's what they do. That's their whole job. That's why they're in business. And so that's part of it. People are just what I've seen a lot of people are afraid to even start that conversation because they're worried that number one, they're going to get sold to. The second piece, though, is very much like you said, that's just the social stigma that people have about not wanting to feel less than. Like traditionally, to sit down and speak to a financial advisor, I mean, you used back before the rise of online banking and like online trading came around, you had to go talk to a financial advisor and to even have a conversation with them. Most of them had minimums of about $250,000 in investable assets. They
Hmm.
were going to charge you to sit down with them. And even though that's changed since like from then to now, that's still the idea that a lot of people have about the financial industry because well that's what my parents did. That's what they went through. And so that just kind of that idea kind of gets passed down. So people are just it's like you said, they're just worried. A lot of it is they're just worried that people will think less of them because they don't know what they don't know. And that's where we're a little different. Because like we do complimentary consultations with everybody. And like our whole goal is not to sell, our goal is to educate. And then build out a plan from there. And make sure that number one, everything is you understand what's happening. Number two, it actually aligns with your goals, and you're not just doing something because Luke Miller told you do this.
Right.
You understand why it fits in your plan, all that. To the second piece of the question, like where's a good place to start? The absolute best place to start is going to be figuring out where your holes are, first of all. And what I mean by that, a lot of people don't like, if you don't already use a budgeting system of some kind, download the, like, if you're into technology, download the Rocket Money app. You can link up your bank accounts, you can link up your credit cards to it. It'll track all your subscriptions, it tracks all your expenses, all your income. You use that thing for about 45 to 60 days, you're going to know exactly where you're over, where your spending's at, where your income's at.
Right.
If you need to make adjustments in certain areas, because that's the first place I would start. And then from there, an easy next step, if you like, of course, building an emergency fund is huge. It's important to have like liquid cash, like in case you need it. Because I mean, the the turmoil in the world right now, just like the epic economic like chaos, I guess you could call it. You need to have your goal should be to have 3 to 6 months worth of expenses in a liquid account somewhere.
Yep.
Personally, for that, I'd recommend a high yield savings account as a just a like a general tip, because you're making like, it's annual rate of inflation is about 3% right now. Most of your high yield savings, you're making like, you can get some good ones. 3.3 to 3.9 is pretty common right now. So like, it's not much,
But you're
but it's
making a
going to keep
little.
up.
Yeah,
You
right.
keep up with
Staying
inflation,
ahead.
which is the biggest piece.
Right.
That's going to be really, I think, the first, like, if I was to say like, where do you start? That would be step number one. Second thing I would like to touch on kind of a little bit, that a lot of people don't understand, like they don't really understand how this works. And that's the concept of compound interest. And I'm curious, Cord, is that what, what is, I know you're more knowledgeable than a lot of people when
Oh
it comes
gosh,
to
I don't know
finance.
about
Like,
that.
I just from our previous conversation, how well do you understand compound interest?
Well, I think that I understand it well, but I have a feeling that as we get into the details, I don't know that I understand the periods well enough, right? I mean, the theory of compounding interest is that your interest, obviously then it goes in as part of the principal, right? So then
Mhm.
you're actually that's the compounding part. You're now actually gaining interest on your interest. But I think, I don't know that I've ever had a really great understanding of how to read like a term sheet that actually tells me like what that compounding is. Am I barking up the right tree? Maybe I don't know
You're
anything,
close.
Will.
You're close. Like, yeah, you are on the right track. I've got an exercise I want to run you through really quickly.
Okay.
Hello, shed sellers. Let's take a moment to discuss the shed customer and meeting their expectations. I remember growing up in the neighborhood where a certain percentage of the houses had well manicured lawns and well manicured homes. These were the type of individuals who felt it was important to purchase a well constructed home or vehicle, or maybe equipment to help maintain the quality of the item. As shed manufacturers, we seek to provide a well built quality shed. We want the customer to feel satisfied that their hard earned money has been well spent on a product that will last. At LuxGuard, we believe adding high quality rubber flooring to your line of sheds makes sense to the customer and adds value the customer can appreciate. With each year, sheds are becoming more complex. The customizations we are seeing are virtually endless. LuxGuard not only gives a complimentary aesthetic appearance for their shed, but also protects the floor from spills and keeps cleanup simple. Offer your customer the customer service they seek with LuxGuard. At LuxGuard, we are committed to delivering exceptional customer service and innovative products to help our customers achieve their goals. We strive to meet the evolving needs of the customers. To speak with one of our ready-to-serve customer product specialists, simply call 336-468-4311. To see our product and view an installation video, just visit our website at luxguard.com. LuxGuard, the floor that lasts a lifetime.
And this will like, I'll say, I don't want to speak for you. It blew my mind when I
Yeah,
first
yeah,
realized this.
yeah.
And if you're not watching on YouTube, of course you won't see this, but I'll kind of explain this as we go. So I've got like, you can see this right here, Cord. I got a
Yeah.
sheet of paper. It's just your standard like 20 pound 20 pound thickness paper, right?
Right, right.
Just a basic sheet of copy paper. This is how compound interest works. So you put your money in, it compounds. Let's say it doubles. Uh, how long it takes to double is not really that important to the concept right now. So like right now, we've got one double.
Yep.
Do you notice much difference? Not really. It's just a little bit. So we go again. Now we've doubled twice.
Right.
And we're still like
Yep.
we've got
Layers.
basically four layers thick. So that's two times. Um, I double three times and I go four times. And so now, based on our illustration, we've doubled this sheet of paper four times already.
Yep.
And you see about how much thicker it is now than when we started.
Yeah. It still is basically the thickness of
It's still not much more than the thickness of a paper. Like
two
it's
credit
still
cards.
super thin.
Yeah, right.
It's about a credit card and a half right now.
Yeah, right.
Let me ask you this though, Court. Like you've seen how thick this paper is right now. We've doubled it four times. Imagine, like, give me your best guess. Like we can't do it, right? It's physically impossible because the paper is so small already.
Yeah.
But let's assume this is a theoretical illustration. Assume we could double that fold that sheet of paper in half.
Infinitely.
We've gone four times. Not infinitely. We're not talking infinitely. We're talking 46 more times.
Yeah.
We're going to fold this in half 46 more times than what it is right now.
Yeah.
Give me your best guess as to how thick you think that will be.
Oh, I've heard this one. So I'm probably better at it. 2 to the 50th, basically.
Essentially.
I think is, oh gosh, is this the one that winds up being like the distance to the moon or something? Is that right? Is it that big? Tell me, what is it, Luke?
Yeah, it's 93 million miles, the distance to the sun.
The sun. The sun.
All the way just from like this sheet of paper. It's at this thickness now.
Right.
You double this 50 times, it would be 93 million miles thick.
Right.
And then like that's compound interest. But what happens
exponentiality,
if you could double
as
take
that curve
from
climbs, right?
It's just a huge it's like a hockey stick curve.
Yep.
Exponential growth. You fold that 51 times, how much like how long is the distance now all of a sudden? You're
Right.
to the sun and back.
Yeah, right.
And
Round trip.
that's just to illustrate the power of compound interest. And Einstein called it the eighth wonder of the world because, and this is really the compound interest is where we always start with education. We teach about the rule of 72. And I'm not sure if you may or may not be familiar with the rule of 72.
I'm not.
It's just a concept that tells you how long it takes for your money to double at any given interest rate. So like you take whatever interest rate you're getting, divide that into 72. That's how long it's going to take. So for example, let's say you're in an account making 1% interest, which you and I both know if you're in just a standard savings account somewhere, you're lucky to get 1%.
Right.
But assuming you can get 1%, we take 1%, divide that into 72. It's going to take 72 years for your money to grow.
Right.
On the flip side, though, if you had put that money into an account where you're making 10% even, now your money's doubling every 7.2 years, roughly.
Yep.
And you
For
get
all
more
you
doubles.
RTO guys out there.
for all you RTO guys out there, I've thought this through for the rent-to-own industry for sure. I've got some ideas there. We should talk. But yeah, so it's goes from 72 years to 7.2 years, just that 10% difference in points. But even more important than that, and this is a more realistic example, at 4%, it's going to take you, divided by 4.
Divided by 4, about 18.
18 years. 18 years if you're making 4%. If you're making 6%, it's going to take you 12 years to double your money.
Yep.
And so that's where understanding how compound interest works really comes in play. And it just goes to show why we go so hard. It's why it's so important to fight for every single interest point possible during the accumulation phase of your wealth, because compound interest works. The only way it works is with time.
Yep.
The more time you have, the more time it has to double. But then even over that time span, 1 to 2 interest points higher over the long term is going to completely transform the game for you.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point. We were actually just having a that same conversation in reverse almost about the way that some of the payments happen in the shed industry, because effectively your costs rise with your price, right? Instead of having that fixed payment, which is the same principle that you're saying, right? Like each of those, 1%, when applied across the board or to all of your wealth, or 2% or 3% or 4%, winds up doubling that amount of wealth in that rule of 72. So, okay. So, whenever we think then about how to apply some of this, obviously we've been around shed companies. We've kind of
Mhm.
seen the way they operate. We've been around RTO companies, seen the way they operate. Like within the industry, where do you think are some applicable ways, again, kind of at that entry level? We've been talking mostly on a personal level of wealth,
Mhm.
but as we start to think about applying it, to a company, to a business, like what would you say are some of the ways that you could kind of have that entry level of wealth management within the business itself?
Great question. So there's a couple of different ideas here. And like I've been in I've been on the delivery side. I've been on the the sales side as a salesperson. Um, I've also done some like help with management on the business side. So I think I've got there's a few different ideas that we can touch on, and I'm not sure how much time we'll have to get through them all. But when it comes to business owners, like we're talking rent to own companies. One of the, of course, the one of the big factors you got to think about is opportunity cost, right?
Yeah.
Because like sure, I can put my money like
What's the bond rate,
somewhere.
right? What's
But
the,
where am I going
what's,
to put my
yep,
money? Because I can put it in a savings account. Okay, we're going to grow it in a savings account, but then what happens when let's say I'm a manufacturer and I'm wanting to open a new lot. How much is it going to cost me to open up a new lot? It's going to cost, I mean, like you're going to have real estate to worry about. You're going to have to put up an office. You're dropping buildings on the lot. You're going to have, I mean, what, 15, 20 buildings on the lot on the smaller side.
95,
If you're
95 to 120, depending on what those
dependent on the
buildings are.
company,
Yeah. Right.
you may have like, because of course, yeah, different companies, take different approaches to how much
Right.
inventory they stock. But like, if
We
you
usually
factor
hear the
in,
number 120 get thrown around pretty comfortably when you're just talking about if you're putting out inventory, how many dollars, in inventory are you tying up, on a new
Mhm.
lot? And it feels like the kind of number that people just kind of throw out there. That 120 number, everybody, whenever we say that, seems to just be like, well, yeah, basically, you know.
So
Yeah,
let's break this down real quick then. And I've got something I want to show you because like this is what I love. This is exciting. Let's say between real estate, land purchase, site prep, you're dropping an office and you probably realistically got anywhere from like unless you're just renting the site somewhere. But if you put your own site in, you're going to be pushing 250 to 300 minimum to get
yeah.
your
By the
lot prepped.
inventory, everything. Yeah, yeah,
At least, like, and if you figure inventory, I would like if you're trying to drop 120 inventory sheds.
yeah. Right.
I memean, I know the industry average.
Oh, I'm in
Um,
a I'm in
for,
120,000 worth of inventory that's
oh,
then going out there. Yeah, yeah,
oh
yeah.
yeah,
Right.
$120,000. And would you say that's tied up in cost or is that retail value?
I think usually most of the guys we talk to are probably thinking in terms of cost because they
Okay,
don't
good.
want it they don't want it to feel super bad when
So
it
like
when it's sitting
we're
out there.
talking all in, like it's not going to be uncommon, 300K,
No.
400K to set up a new lot. And what you got to think about, okay, on that 400K, you could be like if you're in a high yield savings account with that money, and because like you got to sit on your capital for the right opportunity, right?
Right.
If you're making 3.5%, I mean, you're making about 14 grand on that money. But what happens? What happens as soon as you go to open the lot? All that money is no longer in your account, and it's no longer working for you, right?
Right.
And now it's tied up in lot expenses. You'll make some of your money back on the inventory side when you sell your inventory, but I've been around a lot of different lots. And as like with my personal experience in sales, some sheds go really quick, and I've had a couple I've sat on for like a year and a half, 2 years before they move.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
So you really, and you, during that process, all that money's just tied up. Would it not be great if you could use that money in two places at once?
You're darn right. Yeah.
It would be, but so like that's the whole problem with opportunity cost. So like you're choosing to do one thing historically by default, you're choosing not to use that money for something else.
Yep.
And that's one area we come in, and through we've got we use a combination of indexing strategies to basically where we can all it is changing cash flow a little bit.
Yep.
Where like the business owner changes cash flow a little bit, funnels it into an indexed account. Those indexed accounts, on average, we're seeing them grow at 8 to 10% average.
Don't let it sit idle. Right.
Don't, and like, because if you're letting it sit idle, like you're losing money. But what you can do, where this strategy really comes in play, you funnel the money into indexing strategy. You're making 8 to 10% on average annually. Whenever your time comes to get your lot, you borrow against that.
Yep.
So we take a loan out, and with these strategies, you're borrowing out about 5%. I know for a fact lines of credit right now, 9 to 13%. I mean, you're going to be high single digits right now, typically for interest rates, most places. In these strategies, it's just a locked in 5%.
Yep.
What we're going to, so we're going to borrow the money out at 5% and use it. So now we funded our lot. We built our inventory. That's taken care of. But this money is still growing interest because we borrowed against it. It's accumulating interest as if it was never used. And
Right.
so now the account's growing at 8 to 10% on average. You're borrowing it out at 5. You're making an extra 3 to 5% on that while you're using it to fund a new sales lot.
And this
Does that
goes
make sense?
directly just to like make this hit, try to make it hit home here. I mean, to me, this goes directly to some of the tightening margins that we're seeing in the industry at the moment, right? As you're seeing, consumers are stretched, disposable income is stretched. So as that happens, you are seeing the need for more inventory to be discounted at the end of the year. Average margins go down. The cost of money on the RTO side, if you're borrowing, bank money, is going up. And so like all these margins are getting squeezed. The efficiency within your operation and the ability to actually standardize and all those things, of course, count. But what you're sitting here talking about is the difference in that 3 to 5% on the money that you already hold is effectively making up for some of the tightening of margins. And I'll just say, I mean, from what I see, the companies that are savvy enough that are employing these things are the companies that are still sustaining the growth that they had seen in that. I mean, not the peak, the height of COVID, right? I mean, that was a whole different level of going bananas or going gangbusters, as people say, but they're able to sustain the level of growth that they've had over the last, call it 18, 24, 36 months. And they're able to keep that going because they are being savvy with their money, which means that they can they can lose a little margin within the operations. They can lose a little margin within the cost of money on RTO or whatever that might be whenever you're making it back up in this other area. Am I thinking about all this in the right way, Luke?
You're definitely on the right track. There's one key piece though that
Let's hear
makes it even better because
it.
remember, we've just we've just borrowed this out for like here's like we've got this money in the account. We've borrowed out to start a new lot.
Yep.
We're saying 300K, whatever. Um, we borrowed out at 5%, but because we borrowed this out for a qualified business expense, the interest on that loan, that 5% interest we're paying on that 300,000, that's a tax deduction.
Right.
So not only are you making an additional 3 to 5% on average tax free,
Right.
growing your money, but you're also like you just created a business write off
Able to take
on
it
the interest
against
that you're
revenue.
paying back, and
Very
now you've
slick.
created a tax deduction.
Yeah.
And here we're talking in the 300K level, but I will like this is not related to the shed industry. We do a fair amount of work with like large scale real estate investors
Mm-hmm.
using these exact strategies. Only they're funding them at, I mean, 250,000, 500,000 a year, and using it to fund real estate deals.
Yep.
You borrow money out, purchase a property, flip it, resell it, pay the loan off. Money goes back into the account, rinse and repeat. All your money is always working for you.
Yep.
Um, the best part with these accounts, though, is because of the strategies we're using, you are contractually guaranteed a floor of 0%. So it's not directly in the market, but it does get market growth potential. But then on the flip side, because it's not in the market, it's not directly in the market. If the market crashes next year, you're just not making any money.
Right.
You're not growing it. You just make zero. But the advantage is when the market's up, you're making like in these strategies, like we can get into the weeds there. Typically, you make about 80% of the market growth.
Right.
On average, like 30-year look back is where I get that 8 to 10% average from. That includes every single down year. And like if you've studied the markets at all, you know the market's up about 7 out of every 10 years.
Right.
There's going to be about 3 years out of 10 that it's going to be down. So that's one strategy there when it comes to how business owners could really benefit, because I haven't met a business owner yet who doesn't want to, like, who's not interested in the idea of increasing their ROI. Like, if I could show you a way to increase it by 3 to 5% on average, and all you're doing is changing the way you funnel some money,
Yep.
is that something you'd be open to learning more about?
Oh gosh, it's something I personally am open to learning more about. Obviously, for listeners out there, you all know that I started my own company with one of my former coworkers, Shalisha Wood, Growth Ops Ally, fractional C-suite executive services type of a thing, and like and then my wife owns a salon. We own a wedding decoration business. I mean, we are not actively, I mean, I think we do pretty well with, common strategies and, having some investments and diversifying and,
Mhm.
Stuff like that. But like, I've known for a long time that we are absolutely not taking advantage of the sort of financial tools that can just be available. I had mentioned a money market earlier, because I actually, at one of my previous employers, they had a money market account, which by my understanding is effectively a quasi liquid, close to liquid type of an account that like you have to keep a minimum amount in, by my understanding. But basically you have this range where as long as you're keeping whatever that number is, 10,000 or 15 or 20, then you can use it much like a checking account, but it is always attached to the market. And so you're always gaining from that upward market trajectory, presuming you're in one of the seven of 10 years, um, while also being very close to liquid. Am I understanding? These are the
Yeah.
type of techniques
Yeah.
that
You're
like I am not employing, that I know that I need to, and I'm not even a company, you know, me and my wife, I mean, we're not juggling, millions of dollars a year in in weddings and weddings and haircuts and executive services, right? So, I know that these things have to be so applicable to all of the inventory and cash holdings and the way that money gets deployed in this industry. It just feels intuitive that if I need to do this, and I know I do, and I'd really like to have a separate meeting with you if I'm
Hmm.
just being frank.
For sure.
Uh, um,
For sure.
I know that this has to be applicable.
Are you swimming in leads but struggling to close the deal? It's time to turn those leads into profits with Making Sales Simple, the ultimate sales training program designed specifically for shed sales professionals. At Making Sales Simple, we understand the challenges you face, overwhelmed by inquiries, unsure how to follow up, and missing opportunities that can boost your bottom line. Our proven techniques help you and your team master the art of connecting with customers, building trust, and closing deals like never before. Whether you're new to the industry or a seasoned pro, this training will sharpen your skills, increase your conversions, and drive your business to new heights. Don't let those leads go cold. Invest in your team's success today. Making sales simple, because every lead deserves a closer.
Oh, I believe it is. And like that's one area we can definitely bring a lot of value to businesses. And I like just speaking to the elephant in the room. I'm only 32. I'm pretty young. I ain't been like I know the big players in the industry. Like you've got guys that have been in business for 20 years, 30 years, and longer. And I I'm also like I believe education is key. I'm also the mindset that like there's always room for growth.
Yeah.
Just because we've always done something one way doesn't mean that that's the only, doesn't mean that there's no better options out there. Um, I love nothing more than sitting down with even especially business owners because they're savvy, they know business, that are just open-minded to learning more. Because if people are open to learn, there's so much out there when it comes to just not so much knowledge out there that a lot of people aren't taking advantage of. And that's kind of one of the areas we help in. The other two areas I really want to touch on really quick because I know we got to be close up
We're
on
getting
time.
close. Yeah. I'm watching here. I got your back.
We have so like one of the services we like one thing we do for businesses like we take we'll come in when it comes to consulting with the business. Oftentimes what we do, we come in, we look at the entire picture of the business, treat your business like basically like your network. Because here's what you see like as a business owner, Cord, you know what this is like. Tell me how well your business would run if none of your employees talk to each other.
Oh, it wouldn't.
It wouldn't. But
Yeah.
yet here today, like with business owners, you've got a CPA who's not talking to your real estate agent, who's not talking to your finance advisor, who doesn't talk to the estate planner or the tax attorney. Um, most people aren't talking together. And so each person has just a very like tunnel minded view of
Mhm.
their aspect of your business. But none of them are typical, like what we oftentimes find, I should say. They're not all really working together. So where we come in is we'll come down, sit down with the business, take like a big 360-degree, like bird's eye view of the business, look down, figure out what's working well. The things that are working well, we don't touch. If you've got great options in place, awesome. If you have pieces that aren't working so well, we'll come in and replace those because we've got a whole like we take a strategy kind of like a fractional, like have you heard of like the fractional family office concept, or like you mentioned fractional C-suite,
Yeah.
like executive kind of that similar concept. We come in, look at the company.
Concierge service,
We
right?
we bring in
Yeah.
like for example, one area that's oftentimes overlooked. We see a lot of businesses that don't have a good tax, like they've got just a CPA they've used for years because that's just who they've used. But when we get digging into it, like is the CPA actively planning for their tax situation? No. A lot of times it's just we send them our numbers at the end of the year, send
Right.
them our QuickBooks, and they tell us how much we owe in taxes.
Yep.
But you're losing out on a ton of advantages. You could like deductions and just strategies
Yep.
that you could be taking advantage of if you just had a plan in place to start with, or had a CPA that was actually like took a proactive approach to tax planning.
Right.
And so we've got a whole part of our whole value added. Number one, we work with represent the top 190 companies in the finance industry directly. In addition to that, we've got partnerships with mortgage brokers, real estate investors, private equity, a lot of like tax attorneys. Our whole mission, our goal is to be a truly one-stop shop. So whatever our clients' needs are, whether it's a new CPA, we've got a solution for that. Whether it's just making sure your business is structured properly and you're maximizing everything you can, paying the least amount in taxes. We've got a solution for that. We kind of come in and we help put all those pieces together, make sure everybody's on the same page, and that at the end of the day, everything's aligned with the business owner's goals, where they want to be in the future.
Yeah.
So that's on that piece. And they're kind of to touch on like what I used to be a salesperson. And so like, I know as a salesperson, I was never really taught about, well, like I said, I never had much education before this. So a couple areas to think about, like just make sure you're not like one issue, like there's an issue I see a lot, especially with high earning salespeople.
Mm-hmm.
And they just don't, they haven't thought through the process to make sure they're maximizing all their deductions. I mean, maybe you're W-2. I know in the industry, I think it's pretty common to be either like independent contracted, if you're an independent
1099
dealer,
or probably more, or
1099,
I don't know. It's shifting a
pay
little bit.
one.
Yeah. Right.
That kind of varies back and forth.
Yeah. Right.
But I see a lot of 1099 earners. They sell a lot. They make good money, but they have never thought about how to actually keep more of what they're making.
Yeah.
And there's so many tax advantages out there you could take. And then the third piece on the delivery side, I don't know how many haulers you have listened to the podcast.
Several.
But
I mean, a lot of window time in the
there's
hauler space. Yeah.
a new strategy. I learned about this last week, and it's really phenomenal when it comes to like, 'cause what's one of the biggest issues haulers have, and number like we touched on the other insurance.
Yeah.
When it comes to commercial insurance, and there's a new strategy. Like we've got a strategy we use now. Like it works like a couple haulers going together. Essentially what you do is like there's a strategy out there where we can potentially create like a captive agency. Couple owners going together, they're paying premiums in. And then at the end of the year, like caveat is this money's locked up for a year minimum.
Yeah. Right.
Got to be in for a year minimum. On the backside, we're growing that through different methods.
Yeah. Right.
IRA,
Diversified.
a well-diversified portfolio.
Right.
Well, then after 12 months, any unused premiums can be pulled out by the owners again. And they're just paying, like, because it's been locked up in there for a year, they're going to pay a long-term capital gain tax on it, typically around 15%. But essentially they're self-insuring themselves.
Yeah.
We've done of course, the larger you are, the better sense this makes.
Yeah. Right. Sure.
We've just actually sat down with we've been working with a trucking company, a large one. Granted, their commercial trucking insurance is $750,000 a year.
Right.
Just on the insurance piece. Like it makes great sense for them.
Yeah.
If you don't have a great driving history, like if you don't have a clean record, it won't be as much savings.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's all about education, knowing what your options are.
Yep.
And
taking advantage of each little one. It's the same concept as the compounding interest itself, right? It's not a single strategy or a single piece of education, a single piece of information that's the silver bullet. It's taking each of the pieces, and as they add up, right, all of a sudden your money, your financial strategy is working for you every day. You
For
know,
sure.
like,
It does.
you know, um, to me, that's the biggest. I think it's the biggest gap in broader society. I mean, I think the fact that most Americans are not financialized in this way, are not using these strategies, and I think for the most part don't understand that it's accessible, through guys like you, through companies like the Miliari Group, through financial advisors, and that really the network is really what you're talking about, right? It is
Mhm.
the fact that you can put all the pieces together. You can add financialization or financial strategies into all of these interactions, all of these expenses, all the income, everything that we do. You can add all those little pieces up and just you know, come out actually prospering more for all of the hard work. I mean, every person that listens to this podcast is tuning in to get better, to be better, to understand more, to get ahead, right? Like, I mean, if you're listening, you are invested in this industry. You're invested in your work. You're invested in your craft. You're invested in the way that you want to succeed. And so, employing all of these strategies that Luke is talking about here today, this is just, these are how that prospering, truly adds up and takes advantage, of the financial systems that we've built. Um, Luke, like, I'm really impressed with bringing the level of knowledge that you have down to these straightforward, easy to implement, or not. I'm not going to say easy. You still need a professional, but like, easy in the sense of easy to understand, straightforward, and very practical solutions that you've brought to us today here, man. I mean,
Appreciate
I
it.
want to give you a chance here to kind of, I don't know, maybe it's the elevator pitch from back in your sales days. Maybe it is just maybe it's just a summary of your view of how the Miliari Group and yourself and the things that you offer can help the industry. But man, just give us a good wrap right here, Luke. This has been such good information. You've got me excited about
Appreciate
employing
that.
these tactics in my own life. So wrap us up with some more of that good stuff, Luke.
Awesome. Okay. So like I guess just to really wrap up, you kind of hit on this a little bit. Everybody in the industry, like I've been in the industry. We were all hardworking. Everybody's trying to do the absolute best they can and just get better. And I will say, like we talk about, I'm not going to cover it today because we don't have time, but we've got a whole concept called the risk pyramid. And it breaks down literally all the different strategies you can grow your money in, categorized by like how risky are they. Like at the very top, of course, you got your crypto and like your really high risk, high reward stuff. And then on the bottom of the pyramid, you've got like the really safe, not I mean they get good growth, but it's not like you're not shooting the moon or anything. It's
Bonds.
just good solid growth.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
One of the things on the very bottom of the pyramid though that we add is self-development. If I was to be able to give any tip out to anybody on the podcast, invest in yourself. Whether that is through just learning more about finance, whether that's through like I can give a recommendation of 4 or 5 books to read if you want to get like it. I've done some serious work on just my personal development side when it came to sales and that kind of thing. Uh, I believe that reading is vastly underrated, and you spend some time developing yourself. That's going to be the absolutely best investment you could ever make. Uh, that's why it's on the bottom of the pyramid
That's
because
right.
you'll take you'll
Foundational.
take you'll take your growth and then just apply that to the rest of your life, whether it's finances, your family, your business, whatever the area is, and you'll do a whole lot better there. It'll really help your growth. But yeah, just to really, I guess, wrap up the rest, if you have any questions about finance, I will say I love questions. Ask me any questions you want. I'm an open book. I will answer them. If they're finance related, even better. But we can do, yeah, a lot of the areas, like if you're struggling with cash flow, we can help in the area like managing debt. Like we've got all these growth strategies. It's really a personalized approach we take client to client. My whole goal in our entire process is to teach clients how money works, how it grows, how it's taxed, and then teach them how they can implement it in their own personal situation to just create a generational legacy impact. Leave a legacy behind to your kids and your grandkids and their kids.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a scripture about that, right? And I cannot think. I just read it the other day, and I cannot think about it off the top of my head about a wise man leaving an inheritance to his children and his children's children. But take that. I've also dropped my number. It's my personal cell number, 931-636-4126. If you want to call me, text me. I would love to sit down and get to know a lot more of you better and just see where we can add some value to what you got going on already.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So good, Luke. And of course, for all you out there, we will include the link to Luke and the Miliari Group in the newsletter. So go check out your newsletter and get in touch with Luke. He said his number there. You can obviously reach out to us. If you didn't catch it, we will put you in touch as well. Click the link, give us a ring, give Luke a ring. These are things that are much needed, in all business and in all personal life. We work so hard for our prosperity. We should enjoy that prosperity, and we should be able to take advantage of these systems that are available to us to ensure exactly what Luke said there, the prosperity of not only us, but generations. So, Luke, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for listening to all of you out there, and join us next time on the Shed Geek Podcast.
Thanks again, Shed Pro, for being the Shed Geeks studio sponsor. If you need any more information about Shed Pro or about Shed Geek, just reach out. You can reach us by email at info@shedgeek.com or just go to our website, www.shedgeek.com, and submit a form with your information, and we'll be in contact right away. Thank you again for listening, as always, to today's episode of the Shed Geek Podcast. Thank you and have a blessed day.